Japan just issued a megaquake warning after 175,000 people fled their homes. But the fault that ruptured Monday is not the one that keeps seismologists awake. There is a second fault, over 1,000 miles to the south, that has not fully ruptured in 80 years. Here's what just happened, and here's what comes next. Monday's magnitude 7.7 struck the Sanriku coast at 4:53 p.m. local time. The Japan Meteorological Agency confirmed it. 175,957 people evacuated across 5 prefectures. Tsunami waves hit within the hour. The JMA immediately issued a megaquake advisory through April 27th, but every seismologist covering this week's event kept returning to a different map, a different coast, a different fault. The Nankai Trough. Japan's cabinet office says a full Nankai rupture could kill up to 298,000 people. It could send tsunamis roaring across the Pacific. Honolulu would be in the wave path within hours. Los Angeles and Seattle would go on tsunami advisory. Japan estimates economic damage at up to $2 trillion. That is the earthquake Japan is preparing for every single day. It has not happened yet. Let's walk through exactly what happened on Monday. 4:53 p.m., Japan Standard Time. A rupture tore through the Japan Trench, the deep sea fault off Japan's northeast coast. It exploded upward from a depth of 19 kilometers. Shallow. That matters. The USGS initially measured it at 7.4. The JMA came in at 7.5. Then, after processing the full seismic record, Japanese officials confirmed the final number, 7.7. Each full step up the magnitude scale is 32 times more energy. The gap between a 7.4 and a 7.7 is not a rounding error. It is a fundamentally different event. Within seconds of the rupture, the ground lurched along the northeast coast. In Aomori and Iwate, intensity hit the upper 5 on the Japanese scale. At that level, people cannot walk a straight line. They lose their footing. In Hachinohe, ceiling panels cracked and dropped. In an Aomori shopping center, hanging signs swung wide while people crouched on the tile floor. In Tokyo, nearly 400 kilometers to the south, high-rise windows rattled for close to a full minute. Here's where it got dangerous. The JMA issued an immediate tsunami warning for the entire northeast Pacific coast. Predicted wave height, up to 3 meters, nearly 10 feet of water, aimed directly at populated shorelines. Coastal residents had minutes. Evacuation alerts blasted onto every phone in 5 prefectures simultaneously. In Otsuchi, residents have run the same routes drilled into them since 2011. In Kameishi, people moved without hesitation. Both towns were virtually erased 15 years ago. They didn't need a second warning. The USGS and JMA both confirmed the first wave hit Kuji Port in Iwate within an hour. 80 centimeters, just under 3 feet. A second wave hit 40 centimeters at a second Iwate port. Not the 3 meters feared, not catastrophic. But the alerts didn't stop there. The tsunami warning was downgraded, then lifted. 4 people were injured evacuating. No deaths confirmed. 26 buildings were damaged in Aomori. Hundreds of households lost power. The Tohoku, Hokkaido, and Tokaido Shinkansen lines all shut down. Ferries between Aomori and Hakodate were canceled, but here's what most coverage didn't emphasize. The megaquake advisory that followed wasn't about aftershocks. It was about a separate, potentially much larger event that could follow. The JMA and Japan's Cabinet Office confirmed the probability of a magnitude 8 or greater earthquake along the Japan Trench in the next 7 days is now tenfold above normal. Normal baseline, 0.1%. Current level, 1%. Active through April 27th. Covering 182 communities across 7 prefectures. And this is the second time in 5 months Japan has triggered this exact advisory. December 2025, magnitude 7.6 off Aomori. Advisory issued. No megaquake followed. April 2026, magnitude 7.7 off Iwate. Advisory issued again. The Japan Trench is sending signals. But here's the fault that worries geologists even more. Let's map exactly who is inside Monday's impact zone right now. The evacuation orders covered 5 prefectures along Japan's northeast Pacific coast: Hokkaido, Aomori, Iwate, Miyagi, and Fukushima. The same prefecture that gave its name to the 2011 nuclear disaster. 175,957 people were ordered to leave. 82,811 households. 13 cities, 21 towns, and 6 villages. In Otsuchi and Kamaishi, both destroyed by the 2011 tsunami, the evacuation was immediate. The Tohoku Shinkansen shut down within minutes of the quake. The Hokkaido Shinkansen halted. Even the Tokaido line, connecting Tokyo to Osaka, one of the busiest rail corridors on Earth, paused for safety checks. The Aomori Hakodate ferry route closed. The megaquake advisory now places 182 communities on official preparedness alert through Monday, April 27th. Government instructions to residents in those 7 prefectures: have your emergency bag packed, know your evacuation route, be ready to move in under 90 seconds. That is the active instruction from the Japanese government to millions of its citizens right now. But Monday's earthquake has done something beyond the immediate evacuation zone. It has pulled every seismologist's attention back toward a different map, a different coast, a fault that hasn't moved. And that silence may be the most dangerous signal of all. Here's the earthquake Japan has been planning for since 1946, the Nankai Trough. It runs 800 kilometers along Japan's southwest Pacific coast, from Shizuoka, west of Tokyo, down to the southern tip of Kyushu. This is a completely separate fault system from the Japan Trench that ruptured Monday. Different plates, different mechanics, different regions of Japan. Here, the Philippine Sea Plate is grinding under the Eurasian Plate, locking, accumulating, storing energy that can only leave one way. The Nankai Trough has produced megaquakes every 100 to 200 years for the past 1,400 years. The last time it fully ruptured, 1946, 80 years ago. Japan's government panel updated the risk assessment in January 2026. Their finding: a magnitude 8 to 9 earthquake along the Nankai Trough has a 75 to 82% probability of occurring within the next 30 years. Let that land. Not might happen. Not conceivable. 75 to 82%. Japan's Cabinet Office updated its damage projections in 2025. Up to 298,000 deaths, 215,000 of them from the tsunami alone, 73,000 from building collapses. Economic damage, up to $2 trillion. 764 municipalities across 31 prefectures in the projected impact zone, roughly half the population of Japan. Shizuoka Prefecture alone, an estimated 101,000 dead. Osaka, Nagoya, and Kobe, 3 of Japan's largest cities, sit within the full impact zone. The tsunamis don't stop at Japan's coastline. No AA models show a full Nankai magnitude 9, sending Pacific crossing waves toward Hawaii within hours of rupture. The U.S. West Coast, San Diego to Seattle, would face tsunami advisory conditions. This is not a distant theoretical scenario. This is the official planning document of the Japanese government. Now, and this is critical, Monday's earthquake on the Japan Trench did not trigger or increase Nankai Trough risk. The two systems are independent. Researchers are careful to say that. But this week's event has done something real. It has reminded every scientist and every government official watching that Japan is sitting over multiple loaded fault systems simultaneously. In August 2024, the JMA issued its first-ever Nankai Trough megaquake advisory, after a magnitude 7.1 shook southern Japan. The advisory expired after a week. It triggered nationwide panic buying of rice and emergency supplies. Hotels canceled bookings, events shut down. All from a 1% probability that turned out to mean nothing. That time. The December 2025 Japan Trench Advisory expired the same way. This week's advisory may expire too. But the Nankai Trough is not on a 7-day advisory clock. It is a geologic one, and that clock has been running for 80 years. Here are the 3 developments to track in the coming 72 hours, and beyond. First, the Japan Trench aftershock window. The JMA's megaquake advisory runs through April 27th. During this period, the agency is running round-the-clock seismic monitoring on the Japan Trench. Aftershocks in the magnitude 5 to 6 range are expected and are being tracked closely. The pattern of aftershock decay in the first 48 to 72 hours tells seismologists whether the fault is releasing residual stress or whether stress is migrating to adjacent locked sections. Second, secondary tsunami risk. NOAA's Pacific Tsunami Warning Center cleared all major Pacific-wide alerts following Monday's event. But the 72 hours after a major rupture remain the highest risk window for aftershock-triggered secondary waves. Residents along the affected northeast prefectures are being advised to stay away from the shore through the advisory period. Third, Nankai Trough baseline monitoring. The JMA runs a fully separate, dedicated monitoring system for the Nankai Trough. That system is currently at its standard elevated state, the 75 to 82% 30-year probability, that has been in place since the January 2026 panel update. No new Nankai advisory has been issued this week, but the JMA will issue one immediately if a significant event occurs anywhere along the southwest Pacific coast near that system. Here is the worst-case scenario for the current Japan Trench Advisory, as stated by Japanese officials. If a magnitude 8 or greater earthquake strikes the Chieshima Japan Trench before April 27th, the 1% scenario, Japan's northeast coast could face tsunamis dramatically larger than Monday's 80 centimeters. Official Japanese government projections for a full Japan Trench megaquake include waves in the 20-meter range in the most exposed coastal configurations. That is the official figure, not a YouTube estimate. For the Nankai Trough, independently, Japan's Cabinet Office worst-case scenario projects tsunamis reaching up to 34 meters in specific Pacific-facing coastal areas of western Japan. The best-case scenario, and the one seismologists call more probable, Monday's M7.7 was the main event. Aftershocks diminish through the week. The Japan Trench Advisory expires April 27th without incident. 175,000 people go home. The Nankai Trough continues its slow, grinding accumulation. For another year, another decade. Japan will not stop watching either way. Because the faults don't care about advisory windows. They care about pressure. And right now, Japan is sitting over two of the most heavily loaded subduction zones on the planet. 3 things to remember. 1. A magnitude 7.7 struck Japan's Sanriku coast on April 20th, 2026. 175,957 people evacuated. The tsunami peaked at 80 centimeters. No deaths confirmed. The JMA megaquake advisory is active through April 27th. 1% chance of a magnitude 8 or greater event. 2. The Nankai Trough is a completely separate fault system in southwest Japan. The Japanese government's official estimate up to 298,000 deaths, $2 trillion in damage if it fires at full magnitude. The 30-year probability, 75 to 82%. It has not ruptured since 1946. 3. Japan now operates 2 distinct megaquake monitoring systems simultaneously, one for the Japan Trench in the northeast, active right now, one standing ready for the Nankai Trough in the southwest, always elevated. If you want to know when something like this moves again before it's everywhere else, subscribe. I post every time Earth does something that matters. Coming up, the full story of the August 2024 Nankai Trough Advisory, the event that emptied store shelves across Japan in 24 hours, and what scientists found about the Nankai's stress levels when the advisory expired. That video is on the screen right now. Watch it to understand what Japan's seismologists are actually afraid of. Stay safe.